We're back with another Cowboys Mailbag, answering all of your burning questions live right after our Monday show. Let's dive into some of the top comments and storylines coming from fans today. First up, Stephen Goltz wants to know whether we'll see the Cowboys' three major running backs, Jaden Blue, Phil Maffa, and possibly Javonte Williams or Miles Sanders get any real action in the preseason, or if they'll be saved for the regular season opener. That's a fair question, especially with a new coaching staff trying to figure out what they've got. Here's the thing, we will definitely see Jaden Blue out there. That feels like a lock. Same goes for Phil Maffa. Both of them need reps and are expected to showcase their value during the preseason. As for Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, it's a bit more complex. If either one of them doesn't play at all barring injuries that could actually be a strong hint, they're being locked in for a roster spot. I'm also curious to see if the new staff gives the starters a brief run, maybe a series or two, just to get their feet wet. Either way, expect some combination of those backs, especially Blue, Maffa, and possibly Fawn, to be out there. They're not cemented yet, and they have something to prove. Another question that sparked conversation came from Lucid, who asked whether the Cowboys should prioritize adding a defensive tackle or a cornerback. Honestly, I'd love to delay that decision until after the joint practices, say, around August 5th, because that's when we really get to evaluate what this team needs in a live competitive setting. But speaking short-term versus long-term, I'm honestly more concerned about defensive tackle. We've been down this road before drafting Maisie Smith and late-round flyers, and it wasn't enough. The room at 3 Tech looks decent, but that true nose tackle presence? It's missing. Corners are more readily available on the market, especially as veteran cuts happen, so I think that's easier to patch up in the short term. But DT is a bigger problem over the course of a season. Now, jumping into the QB discussion, someone asked about Will Grier. Does he make the roster? And is he the backup? I believe he does make the team. With the current rules, teams can carry an emergency third QB if he's on the active roster, which gives you flexibility on game days. Grier's a vested vet, meaning he can be released and re-signed to the practice squad without waivers, so that's a potential strategy. That said, I still think he's in a legit battle with Joe Milton. Grier knows the offense better right now, and if something happens mid-season, he's probably the safer plug-in. But long-term say, God forbid, if Doc goes down, you play Milton. He's the upside option. So that QB2 spot is more than a throwaway decision. I lean toward keeping both on the roster with Milton as the developmental guy and Grier as the in-case of emergency option. Another viewer chimed in about the failed Jalen Ramsey trade and what the Cowboys would have done. Here's the truth. They weren't ever in on Ramsey. Not because of the talent clearly, he's still elite, but because of the contract. That kind of financial commitment was never going to fly in Dallas's front office. Even though the trade value seemed reasonable on paper, the actual deal was a bit murky, blended into other swaps, like Jonnu Smith, for a 5th and 7th. Still, with their cap strategy, the Cowboys just weren't going to bite. Moving to the linebacker room, someone asked about trusting Kenneth Murray. The honest answer? In some phases, yes. If he's kept clean and just allowed to roam and chase, he can be productive. But when he's forced to diagnose complex plays counters, misdirection, he struggles. So until we see Damone Clark healthy and the full unit gelling, linebacker is definitely a concern. A fun comment came in about a potential Kenneth Walker trade. While it's intriguing, I don't see Seattle letting him go. Yes, they've got Zach Charbonnet, but the rest of their depth isn't strong enough to ship Walker out. He's still on a rookie deal and brings too much value. Would I take him in Dallas? Absolutely. Do I think the Seahawks make that move? Absolutely not. Speaking of trade targets, viewer suggestions were flying in. Lucid threw out Jordan Davis as a dream acquisition. I mean, sure, he's an elite nose tackle. He'd instantly plug one of the Cowboys' biggest gaps. But again, the Eagles aren't trading him, especially not within the division. Philly still sees themselves as a contender, and Davis is central to that. We also touched on what a good record would look like, given the brutal late-season stretch. Look, this Cowboys schedule is no joke. Down the stretch, you're facing the Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, and Commanders all in succession. That's a gauntlet. So, if you finish with 10 wins, you should feel really good about that. But it also means you have to start the year strong, get wins early against the Bears, Giants, and Jets, because that late stretch might break teams that aren't ready. When asked if the Cowboys' offensive line is good enough, here's the reality: it has to be. The front office has invested heavily first-round picks in Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton, and even a paid extension for Terrence Steele. These aren't backup caliber guys. This is your core. It's young, which brings upside but also inconsistency. If they're not close to elite by year's end, that's a problem. Every snap starts with this group, and every success or failure flows from it. On the topic of defensive scheme changes, especially under new DC Matt Eberflus, it'll be fascinating to watch. He has historically leaned on Tampa 2 and 2 high shells, especially during his Indy days. But in Chicago, he showed more flexibility, including 5-man pressure looks and some man-match concepts. He's not as rigid as Marinelli was, and with the current secondary, a mix of cover 4 and 2 high could make sense. His comments about man coverage being king are interesting. The question is, does he believe he has the corners to pull that off? That remains to be seen. To wrap it all up, we're getting a wide range of questions from fans, from roster battles and injuries to scheme changes and trade speculation, and that's what makes this community awesome. Keep them coming. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're bringing Cowboys content, daily breakdowns, mailbags, analysis, and everything in between. Until next time, Cowboys Nation, stay sharp and stay ready. The season's coming fast.